Timothy Treadwell was an American environmentalist, bear enthusiast, and documentary filmmaker who founded the organization Grizzly People. For 13 summers, he lived among coastal brown bears in Katmai National Park, Alaska, until tragedy intervened. Treadwell's work would form the basis of a documentary by Werner Herzog entitled Grizzly Man, which commemorated his life. Born Timothy Dexter in Long Island, New York in 1957, Treadwell exhibited a great fondness for animals. In all respects, he appeared to have a well-adjusted childhood. However, once he went to college, unusual behaviour surfaced. He began claiming to be a British orphan who had been born in Australia. It was then that he also changed his name to Treadwell. An aspiring actor, his father said that after Timothy lost out on the role of Woody Boyd in Cheers to Woody Harrelson, he spiraled into alcoholism. When a friend suggested that he travel to bear watch in Alaska, it appealed to his love of animals. Once he had experienced bears in the wild, Treadwell felt that he had found his calling in life, abandoning booze and drugs, and dedicating himself to the study and conservation of grizzlies. He wrote a book, Among Grizzlies, Living with Wild Bears in Alaska, that detailed his extremely close interactions with the animals. He talked of touching them, and even playing with bear cubs. He asserted that this was done with respect, and only after building relationships with the animals, whom he individually named and interacted with over a number of seasons. But some bear ecologists were outraged by his behaviour. Tom Smith, a researcher with the U.S. Geological Service in Alaska, said Treadwell was breaking every rule, harassing wildlife, and interfering with natural processes. Ignoring repeated warnings, Treadwell camped along bear trails, recording nearly 100 hours of interactions on video and taking many still photographs. Whilst he claimed to be alone during these times, it is thought he was often accompanied, and in the last 3 summers, he was definitely in the company of his girlfriend, Amy. By 2001, his unconventional research gained much media attention. He travelled the US talking to school children and appeared on television shows as diverse as Dateline and Letterman. Treadwell worked with Charlie Russell, another unconventional bear ecologist, who had spent time studying, raising and living with bears in Kamchatka, Russia, across the Bering Strait from Alaska. The two men differed in approach, though. Russell urged Treadwell to carry bear spray and use electric fences around his camps, but Treadwell dismissed such ideas. His lack of precaution also drew the ire of the National Park Service, who further cited him for harassing wildlife, improper storage of food, guiding tourists without a license, and having confrontations with other guides and tourists. Treadwell had in fact used pepper spray in the past to defend himself, but abandoned it through feelings of remorse that he had injured a bear. In 2003, Timothy and Amy travelled back for the summer in the park. Treadwell's diaries noted that Amy was becoming worried and scared by bears, something that she confirmed in her diaries. Nevertheless, the regular season passed without incident, and the pair initially set out to return home to California. But after an argument with an airline over changing his return ticket, the two returned to the park for another week. This was not advisable, since not only was food scarce that year, making the bears more aggressive, but the specimens Treadwell knew had already gone into hibernation, and the area had been moved into by bears he did not know. A noon phone call on Sunday the 5th of October was the last contact Treadwell had with the outside world. A private pilot arrived the next day to pick he and Amy up, but found his camp deserted, except for a prowling large male bear. The pilot contacted park rangers immediately. Upon arrival, the rangers discovered Treadwell's remains near the camp and Amy's remains near the collapsed tents. The prowling bear became aggressive and was shot and killed by the rangers. A necropsy revealed that this bear had been the culprit in the deaths. In a horrifying postscript, it emerged that Treadwell's video camera had been turned on, but recording only sound for the duration of the attack. Amy could be heard shouting to Timothy to play dead. It is not recommended listening, and out of respect for the deceased, no further details will be listed in this video. Tom Smith commented after Treadwell's death, "It's a tragic thing, but it's not unpredictable." Charlie Russell initially made no comment, but after the release of the documentary, he was highly critical of Treadwell's failure to take basic safety precautions. Continuing on a more positive note, he praised Timothy's devotion to bears and inferred that his heart was in the right place. The Grizzly man's legacy is necessarily mixed. While he got closer to bears than almost anyone else had, and revealed much about interactions with wildlife, his critics also have a point. He may have crossed the line between communing with animals and harassing them, and been naive about the realities of nature. Whatever the truth of it, the end result was the loss of 2 lives, in the most horrific fashion imaginable.